and welcome to Power Up Talk Show, a talk show where we bring together community leaders and inspirational people that are making a difference in our world. I am Sandy Spady, your host, and let the fun begin. Before I introduce my amazing guest, we like to begin with Dion Bass Songbirds Cocktails.
All right. Let's play, guys. So today I'm going to be doing a riff on a Negroni. Now, if you've ever had a Negroni, we all know it's gin, Campari, and sweet vermouth. But I like to add different things and make Negronis in different ways. So what we're going to start out with is our Safutama rhubarb liqueur. Sorry, it's actually an Amaro. And we're just going to do a little bit, because if you've ever had rhubarb, a little goes a very long way. All right. My next ingredient is going to be Turn Me On Blanco vermouth. And if you ever buy a bottle of this, you can literally turn it and it does a little animation for you. It's one of those eye-catching things.
That was really cool.
Yeah. We're gonna pour that. Our next ingredient is going to be Aperol. So if you've ever had an Aperol spritz, pretty familiar with this particular liqueur. So it's meant to be drank. So I think the rule is, if it's light, it's meant to be drank before you eat your dinner, and if it's dark, it's meant to be drank after. So Aperol before, and then Amaro after. And then our last ingredient is going to be our Hendrix Flora Adora. I adore this stuff. So I actually use this in my Clover clubs whenever I make them for people at work. And it's yummy. And then we're going to give it a stir. We're not shaking like we normally do. And as you've noticed, I've already got my glasses garnished with an orange peel. I also put a little orange oil or essence of orange in the bottom of our glasses just to give it a little more pizzazz. Some je ne sais quoi. We're just going to give these a little pour. And there we have it. Delish. I want you guys to enjoy these from me.
Thank you, Dion.
You're welcome, Sandy. Have a great show.
Thanks, Dion. All righty, let's cheers before I introduce my amazing guest to get a little courage. All right, let's try it.
Very good.
Ooh. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are in for a treat. I am so excited to introduce Chad Mayers. He is with the WorkLife Coach. And we go back, 5 years. We both worked for the amazing Greater Omaha Chamber. We are chamber supporters all the way. But now he is off on his own. And Chad, welcome to the Power Up Talk Show.
Thank you, Sandy. Appreciate you having me.
Tell the world, what is WorkLife Coach?
So the Work Lab is a nonprofit that was founded here in town. We are an employer collaborative nonprofit in that our board of directors is made up of representatives from our employer partners and a few others, including myself. A WorkLife Coach is a service that we provide. The full title of it is WorkLife Coach and Resource Navigation. So essentially, we partner directly with employers and we provide their employees with access to a WorkLife Coach. A WorkLife Coach is made available to their employees on site, and we are there to help their employees with anything that is keeping them from being fully physically, mentally, or emotionally present at work. So WorkLife Coach's job is to help the individuals of the organization work through those issues, whatever they may be. We do that utilizing coaching conversations, which is kind of the broad catch-all for what we do working with people. We also use financial counseling, so think budget, spending plans, debt management, credit, that sort of thing, and then also resource navigation. So I like to say that a WorkLife Coach will go 3 to 4 inches deep, but a mile wide. So when we get outside of our skis, that's where we act as a bridge out to the community at large. We do that by partnering with nonprofits, government benefits from time to time, and even individuals in the private sector that are able to come in and help the employees that we're working with anything that they have going on.
What I find interesting is that I feel like you found a need, right? When you started this, how many years has it been now?
5.
5 years.
Yep.
That's when I moved to Omaha.
Yeah.
Anyone's checking. And what made you decide to just jump into this and do it?
Yeah, so by background, before I came in, this was initially part of the Omaha Chamber, which is what we're doing. So it used to be known by the acronym GROW,
Okay.
which stood for Greater Omaha Work Lab. But before that, I had spent the majority of my career working with Coca-Cola here in town. And the last few years of that stint, I was the human resources director. So I had responsibility for most of the state of Nebraska through that role. And in that, I started to get involved with nonprofits here in town, with workforce development organizations, and started to see more and more what would manifest itself to the employer as maybe a performance issue, maybe absenteeism, or on some days a good old-fashioned attitude problem. Gaining an understanding from those individuals that most of the time, those sorts of things were the result of something else that was going on in the person's life. It was just manifesting itself in that way. But human resources within organizations and the benefits that employers were providing were really flat-footed on being able to help individuals, especially if it was something dealing with their personal life, because that's not the sort of thing that you want to talk about inside the workplace with your supervisor, with your coworkers, or with HR, because it's personal and we don't have that kind of relationship. So sometimes those things would come in to my office or would come across my desk. For instance, if someone needs a 401k loan, my job is to give them the paperwork, not to ask, well, why do you need a 401k loan? It could be that your water heater went out and you don't have enough money to just pay for that to be done. You can't get access to credit for whatever reason. So you're utilizing the only tool that you think you have in your tool belt, which is utilizing the 401k loan. So there's all sorts of consequences with doing that. But me as the HR director or the organization really didn't have a lot of tools in our tool belt to help that person. So it's how can you bring in the community in a way that allows that separation between HR and the employee and the relationships that exist inside the workplace. HR may be able to help, but if there's a perception on behalf of the employee that HR either can't, or that HR, you hear this often, HR is there to, quote, protect the company, which is not true in essence. But if employees feel that way, they won't come and talk to you about what they got going on. And then that could lead to that person either having the performance issue, having the absenteeism issue, losing their job or quitting their job. So it just left a big hole there where there really wasn't anything to fill that at the time when I was working in HR. So the model that we adopted here in Omaha was started initially up in Grand Rapids, Michigan, first with an organization called Cascade Engineering. It then morphed into a nonprofit that they founded with some other employers up in the community. That nonprofit is called The Source, still in operation today, but they pioneered this resource navigation model that we adopted and have since expanded. The crux of the piece there is that it's not resources or services that we're missing. And Omaha is very fortunate that we have a large philanthropic community, and there's all sorts of resources out there. You know, I joke often that any problem you can think of, there's a nonprofit for that. But it's what's the connection between that individual and that resource, and there's a relationship missing there, and that relationship needs to be positioned properly. And what we do is we sit inside the organization, but we are not a part of the organization. So we have a different email address from anyone else that you talk to. And that allows us to maintain this confidentiality piece where we have this kind of relationship where you can talk to us about really anything, but there's no professional relationship like you have with your coworkers or with HR. And it allows employees to be very open with us about what they got going on so that we can then get to the root cause of it.
It's really, I love the whole theme of like the gap, right? You're building a bridge, a gap. That's a safe spot, right? Mm-hmm. We've all worked for companies that you didn't feel safe, like really knowing like I need an extra, some extra money for something, but I don't want to tell them all of this because it's going to launch another whole line of questions that I'm not comfortable with. Yep. And so you really are smart at bridging that gap. That's a safe space for employees. And what's worse for the employer is that having to actually look for new help, right? Yep. If they end up leaving because they don't feel heard or understood.
Yep.
And so that costs them money in the long run. So in the
Yep.
long run, you're saving companies money,
Absolutely.
bridging that safe spot for employees to work with you
Yep.
to solve problems that are very solvable, like they're very
Yes.
easy to solve.
Yes.
But yet, sometimes in the corporate world, I feel like they're too busy, or they just don't, like their HR is overworked, or they don't have that that comfortableness
Yep.
with that HR
Yep.
to really tell the truth.
Yeah, and it's really a problem of self-efficacy, both on behalf of the employee for whatever the given situation is. If they know what to do, they're going to solve the problem. But when they don't know what to do, and this is true with most people, when you don't know what to do, you don't do anything, because that's the path of least resistance. And then for HR as well, or even supervisors within organizations, there's a lot of great supervisors that will go above and beyond for their folks. But these are really difficult situations. And you can't go in on these things. You may not know what to do, even if it was happening to you personally. So allowing that space for us to come in and then be a bridge to something else that exists in the community that is already out there. They're the experts. The employee just may not know about it, and we can get them over there. And then they can find the help that they need that way. For HR departments and for organizations, there's way too much information that's out there, and it changes fairly consistently. So keeping tabs on that, whether or not you know it in the first place, keeping tabs on that is super, super difficult.
That's literally a job in itself, right?
Absolutely.
Knowing what's
Absolutely.
happening now, the possibilities, grants come and go, like
Yep.
things happen.
Yep.
But having like a Rolodex, people that don't remember those, that's a Rolodex where you keep handy all the connections and connections and contacts you want for that. And that could be a job. So you're releasing a job part of an HR person and relieving that, and you're doing it for them.
Yeah, yeah.
It just makes complete sense. What was it that made you finally go away from the chamber and do your own thing and just branch off? Like, I feel like you just kind of flew like you were ready, like you're a little bird. You're like, I'm leaving the nest.
Yeah. So, well, we have an ongoing joke about not leaving our parents' house when we go to college, because we're still officing out of the chamber, which has been wonderful. Nice. But really, when we started this at the chamber, it was kind of on a path of either continue to do it at the chamber or branch out on its own. But you got to get enough employers to support you financially to be able to do that. So we operate a model where we're asking the employers to pay us what it costs us to do this. And we've been doing that the whole way through. We do that for a few reasons. One, I want to be able to pass that market value test with the employer. I want to provide them a valuable enough service where we're helping them keep their people or make them more productive or fill in the blank, that they're willing and able to pay for it. It's a part of their benefits package. And we also want to be able to support the individuals that work for us, myself and our coaches, to be able to have good paying jobs, to be able to have all the things that we need to be able to do the work that we do, to have that all be funded from the employer partners. So in that way we can be completely responsive to them and to their employees. But really what we're aiming at are the people that work for them and what they want. And the kind of value proposition there is, if you give the employee that's working for you the tools that they need to build the life that they want, which is part of our tagline now, they will in turn be more committed to your organization. So I'm kind of flipping traditional employee engagement talk on its head, and it's probably not a fair reading of it, but if you think about employee engagement in the way that it's talked about within organizations, it's how can we motivate you such that you're giving of yourself to the organization and the goals of the organization. What we're doing is allowing the organization, by having a work-life coach available, to help the employees of the organization identify what sort of life it is that they want to live and put actionable pieces in place to help them move along there. So we may have an employee come and talk to us about needing rental assistance. That might be the emergency that brings them in the door. But we're going to help them solve that problem. But then we're going to be there the next week. We're going to be there 6 months later. We're going to be there a year later. So it could be that you want to buy a house. Well, if you're at a place where you need rental assistance, it's going to be a long period of time before you can get there. But you can get there. And that time is going to elapse anyway. So having a work-life coach available to you allows you to put that goal out there. That is now your North Star. And it could be, I'm just using buy a house as an example. Yeah. It could be all sorts of different things. Let's get you the rental assistance today. Let's start to look at your budget. Let's start to look at your credit. Let's start to talk about the things that you're going to need to have in place to be able to buy a house someday. And it could be you get a single family home that's, you know, kind of an entry level house in a couple years, and then the dream house is 5 to 10 years away. We can get there. It's just going to take time. But along the way, you have a work-life coach who can be both your cheerleader, helping you kind of move along, and on those days when it's hard and you don't want to do it, help to motivate you, but also be your accountability partner in that as well, and keep you committed to the goals that you've set for yourself.
That is the definition for a coach right there.
Absolutely.
What I love is that you give them set steps to success, right?
Absolutely.
You give them, they have a goal. And sometimes that goal is so overwhelming that you're like, I'm never going to get there.
Yep.
I want to buy a house. I
Yep.
want to
Yep.
do this or get a degree, but it's so overwhelming for people. But when you do it step by step, step to success, I heard it here in Power Up. That's what really helps people, right?
Yep, absolutely.
It makes it attainable and approachable, and you give them the support to get there.
Yep.
That's a great crowds. When you go to look for coaches within your industry, how do you find them?
So typically our coaches, and it's a little bit different for us, most of the people that have worked for us and that work for us now typically have a social services background. So part of that is we need this resource navigation piece. They got to kind of know that landscape, know how to move within it, know what kind of criteria nonprofits and government agencies have for getting you through the door to apply for assistance in various ways. But a lot of people that work in social services, they do coaching. They may just not call it that, but it's coaching by another name, in my opinion. So a lot of them will have familiarity with something called motivational interviewing, which is used primarily, it has kind of a substance abuse framework to it, but it's all about getting someone ready to take on change in their life and what that looks like. So it's open-ended questions, reflective inquiry, all those things are a part of it. They also, if you're working in case management and you're working with people, you will do a lot of the fundamental financial counseling is the term that we use. But you'll do a lot of that with people. You're looking at their budget, you're looking at their credit, you're looking at those blocking and tackling type things that people need to be able to do to reach their financial goals. It's work that financial advisors can't or won't do. Can't because they don't have the time. Some of them won't do it, but it's really not what they're there for. They're there for the investment advice and that long-term strategy. Where they're on the other side of that is how do you get going? No matter where you're at in your career, how do you get going with that financial stuff and setting the plan in motion so that you can reach those long-term goals?
Yeah. Everyone needs, like, I think the financial part of it is, I would never even have an incline that that's what you do, but it makes so much sense because if you want to get to a certain goal, you have to have your finances up. And I always say we need to take another course, like in our 20s, or like we took accounting, 1986, but then you live life and then you're like, oh, I really need to know how to understand that to get to my financial goals.
Absolutely.
And you're right, financial advisors, they're great, but they're not there. They don't have the time or that's not their job. So you're taking another whole position and making it available for the everyday employee, which is beautiful, I think.
Yep, and a lot of employers are looking at that financial literacy piece as kind of the broad term that's thrown out there. From a goal standpoint, I like to joke that I've yet to meet someone who has a goal that doesn't cost money. So that's why it's important within the coaching context. But from a financial literacy, from a financial education, classroom kind of standpoint, our position is that you can do that and that has some good returns on it. However, you got to get people out of work to go into the classroom. But then what they're really wanting to get to is like, okay, I understand, the envelope method or those sorts of things, tools that they can use. But it really comes down to what's my particular plan and how am I putting that into action? So what we lead with is let's make the plan that is your plan. And we're going to use the plan or the issue, whatever it is that brought you in, we're going to use that as a way to educate you more broadly on the sorts of things that you would cover in a financial education or financial literacy course, but we're using the problem that you have as the centerpiece and we're bringing that in around you. Our position is that is going to help you retain that information a lot better because it's happening in the moments that you need it to happen and you can draw back on it as opposed to, I took this course 2 years ago, I remember they talked about something, now I got to go back and find my notes or whatever. So we want to do it kind of on demand, but you got to get down to the individual level to be able to do that. You got to be working with people one-on-one. And that's expensive from an education standpoint. But our model allows for our coaches to be inside the workplace, and we're there, depending on who we're working with, a certain number of days per week. So you can come in every week, you can come in every 2 weeks, you can have your standing appointment with the WorkLife Coach every month to continue to progress through the different parts of the plan, and to address the things that pop up, because life happens.
Life happens. That's so true. Now, do you ever find, it sounds like you have one-to-one coaching, obviously, but do you ever do group coaching, like lunch and learns or anything to like do a broad education of where people want to go?
Yeah, so we'll do some of that within the organizations that we're working with. So we've done some financial education classes. We always getting up in front of like new hire orientations, or if the employer's having a town hall, we'll have a WorkLife Coach get up in front of that group and talk to folks. But within all of those conversations, even if we're putting some educational material out there that's traditional kind of classroom, we want to get to the one-on-one. That's the goal. So we're using that as a ticket to get you in the door so that we can start executing the plan that you want to have out there.
Because it's really that individual plan for that person. Everyone has different goals. Some people don't want a house. Maybe they want to go vacation once a year in Europe.
Yeah.
That's my financial goal, yes.
Absolutely.
But it's really finding that one-on-one time to find out where they want to go and the steps to get there. How do you find your employees' collaboration? Like, how do you reach employees? How do they reach you? How does that work?
So employees within the partnerships that we have?
Yes, your partnerships.
Yep. So first and foremost, before we start out there, we try to get in. So if it's a new partnership, we try to get in front of every single employee in kind of a group format. So we'll stand up in front of employees and, hey, here's who we are, here's what we're here to do. And we'll do that as many times as it takes to get to everyone. I mean, we've had employers that have 1,000 employees, and we've done 40 to 50 of those meetings at 5 o'clock in the morning, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, at midnight. We've been there because we want to reach everybody. And then once we start out there, we're on site. So you know where the office is that we're going to be located, you know where to find us, and we're there consistently. We're there every week, either one day or a certain number of days of the week. You know who we are, you know where to find us. When we're not working with someone and we're on site, we don't rest on our laurels, we don't sit in the office, we get up and walk around and talk to people.
Nice.
I know from my experience in HR that you have employees that have things that they want to talk to you about. Usually their wife's been nudging them to, hey, ask them about this. But they're not going to come into your office, they're not going to email you, they're not going to call you on the phone or text you. If they see you walking on the factory floor, though, they'll wave you down. Yeah. So we get out there and we mimic that by just being out there and being available.
That is so smart. You have to meet that person where they're at.
Absolutely.
And maybe they don't want to be seen going in there, but like on the floor, like you said, you go to them and it's comfortable, and you could just be talking about the weather, but yet they're telling you, I really want to buy a house. I really am trying to, like, my wife needs this surgery, but I told her to hold off for the financial reasons. Like, that is so smart that you get to where they're at. So you can get to understand where they want to go.
An employee could be talking to us about anything. It doesn't have to be something negative or an emergency per se. We could be working on something extremely positive with them. So that opening allows, fellow employees to, hey, I saw you went in there, you're talking to the WorkLife Coach. One, is none of their business, but if they want to share, they certainly can. But it could be anything. It's wide open with that. Anything that's keeping you from being fully physically, mentally, emotionally present at work, it's wide open in that way on purpose to have as open a door as possible. So.
All right, where do you want to go? Let's say 5 years from now, Chad, where do you want to go? Where do you want to take this? How many coaches do you want? Like, where do you want to go? International? Let's just do it.
Oh, goodness. So our position is that this is the future of workplace benefits, that any organization, regardless of size, and our smallest employer partner has 70 employees, and we have a structure that can really go down to one employee if they want to. But we think that every employer should offer this, and it should be as ubiquitous as health insurance, as vacation, anything like that, because everyone can benefit from having someone to talk to about something. So we're really trying to democratize that access to having a coach available to you. So over the next few years, as many employers as we can get to in Omaha, as many employers as we can get to in the surrounding areas. But even the employers that we're working with currently, not all of their employees just work here in Omaha. They have subsidiaries or they have remote workers. So we're really helping people across the country already.
Wow.
We're just trying to expand that footprint.
I love that. That's a great goal. Great. They're going to get bigger and better. All right, Chad, let's talk about you. Like, where'd you grow up at?
So I'm from Lincoln originally.
Okay.
And then I've been in Omaha since 2012.
2012.
Yep.
Do you find a big difference from Lincoln to Omaha?
I think the biggest one is probably just the ease of getting around Omaha as compared to Lincoln.
Interesting.
Which is just how the interstate runs through town. It's always interesting anytime I go back to Lincoln how much it's changing over the years. So there's a lot of growth happening down there. I personally feel like Omaha and Lincoln should be doing more together, helping grow the region as a whole, which has benefits to the state of Nebraska as a whole, and then of course our friends across the river as well. But yeah, Lincoln originally, and then been in Omaha for a little over a decade. Yep.
So tell us, Chad, what is a win? Like a win day? Like something great happened, like that's a win. Like what is a great win for you?
So I'm in a position, I'm really fortunate that we get some sort of win just about every day. And a win for me is anytime one of our clients accomplishes something that they want to do. We're over 700 people already this year across our 8 employer partners that we've worked with. We'll be north of 1,000 by the end of the year. We're north of 3,000 people that we've worked with since we started doing this. Anytime one of them accomplishes one of the goals that they had out there, no matter how small it is, because as you mentioned, those small wins really count, and we like to celebrate those. So anytime one of our coaches tells me one of those stories, that's a win for me, absolutely.
Is there anything fun that you do for the wins? Like if someone had a big goal, like and they did it, do you do anything special, or do you just have a little party inside the office? Like I just love wins, right?
Yeah.
I'm that cheerleading coach, cheerleader for nonprofits and businesses.
Yep. So it's one of those pieces where with the client and the coach, because of the confidentiality of the service, we let them have that win together. I just kind of get to hear about it by proxy. But certainly we like to take care of our coaches. We'll take them out to lunch. We'll take them out to have, a team event to really celebrate the work that they're doing, because it can be really difficult on any given day with what's going on with someone. And there's a lot of ups and downs throughout the day. You could have someone who, the first conversation is they want to buy a house. The next conversation is someone who's coming to talk to you about domestic violence situation that they're experiencing, and anything and everything in between. So they do a lot with that, and they're all very wonderful.
Well, this has been wonderful. If you need to get a hold of Chad, how do they get a hold of you?
So you can find me on LinkedIn, so under my name, Chad Mayers. Also, the Work Lab has a LinkedIn page, and then you can find us at our website, theworklab.us.
I love that. Well, thank you for being a guest on Power Up Talk Show.
Thank you.
I appreciate this. Remember, audience, that you don't have to do it by yourself. If you are a company and you have an HR gal that is overworked, that cannot take on everything, or if you just want to bond and keep those solid employees, don't do it on your own. Have Chad come help and his team come help you, because life is all about those relationships. So go build those relationships, make those lasting impressions so we can all build our dreams. Thank you.